Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Define Disaster. This is Battlefield 1. To be precise, the Battlefield 1 public beta. We now finally have our hands on it, and with it, the first insights into the Rush game mode and how it plays out in Battlefield 1. As such, I wanted to go over what I think needs improving in the current build of Rush in Battlefield 1, and how we can make Rush as good, if not even better, than it was in previous Battlefield titles. Now, first things first, I am finally back from my holidays, and as such, the videos can start rolling out on a regular basis again. My channel has been rather quiet over the last months with not so many videos coming out, and you've had to wait for this one a whole 1.5 weeks, and I'm sorry about that, but frankly, I can't make videos when I'm on holiday because I don't have my tools. But with that being said, I'm excited to get into the Battlefield 1 beta, and of course, my favorite game mode being Rush. This video is, of course, quite personally important to myself as well. Now, there's a number of points I want to go over, but none of them obviously are going to be the buggy state of the Battlefield 1 beta. I may do another video about that, and I will do videos about tanks and horses and all that, but today I wanted to cover some of the fundamental problems, at least in my opinion, that I find with the current iteration, the current build of Rush in Battlefield 1, and how we can address them to make Rush appealing to the wider masses once more, as it used to be in the Battlefield franchise. Now, I've had a bit of experience with Rush. I sunk alone 8 hours into the Battlefield 1 beta, first day, got level 30 and all that stuff. I've also got a video coming up actually for you guys to show you how you can get your hands on all the guns in case you didn't know yet. You don't have to go through the tedious progression system, which takes quite a while. But with that all nicely being said, having a little bit of an intro, let's start off with my first point of concern when it comes to the current build of Rush in Battlefield 1. And this is player size. Now, currently, in case you haven't noticed, the maximum number of players that you can have in Rush is 24. Now, some people are speculating this is only to try it out, and with the help of server browsers and the freedom available to every individual once they host their own Battlefield 1 server, you'll be able to start a 64-player mayhem once again. However, there are some saying that actually game modes are going to be limited to certain player amounts, and Rush, of course, being one of those. Now, I personally find issue with 24 players in Rush. I find it just too little when it comes to the population of the actual map. Now, some people may disagree, some people may love the smaller players, and I'm not an advocate of 64 players Metro Rush. Trust me, there's no good in that either, but I think 24 players is just too little. Personally, I find 32, maybe even 48 better suited. It really does depend on the map, and that's my first point. Battlefield, if DICE wants to limit the amount of players on a map in Battlefield 1, I'm completely okay with that, but 24 is too little. 32 on some Rush maps. I can see some bigger Rush maps coming up. Maybe those would require 48 players to fully play out. I think we need to improve the player count because, frankly, I don't want to be having to search for my enemies. And this also ties into another point that we will be covering in just a moment, and that will be the role that vehicles play in Rush, always have, and of course in Battlefield 1, given the increased strength of tanks. This is, of course, going to be once more a talking topic. But with that being said, quick point, I think we need more players. It's just not enough going on the battlefield. I shouldn't be searching for my enemies. All paths should be filled with players. I shouldn't have to think which one are they going to take, or if I take the wrong one, am I going to not see any combat for 2 minutes? Empty map is never a good map. And our Rush map that we currently are looking at is rather small. So if this feels empty in some parts, and only some of the objectives do, with 24 players, imagine we get a nice big open mountain pass with plenty of flanking routes, and we've only got 24 players there. I personally would find issue with that. With that being said, we already kind of touched on it. Let's move on to the map. Now, there's going to be different sized maps when it comes to Rush, Conquest, whatever we have. But map design currently, in my opinion, is geared a little bit too much to 2 specific classes. And those are the Assault class, best of course at dealing with vehicles and close quarter combat, and the Recon class, the Sniper Rifle class, best dealing of course with long range targets. There's very few covers between certain objectives, there's huge sniping potential on most points, and very little room for anything medium range. And I find issue with this because something like a Medic class, which is of course with its DMR directed at medium range combat, and so of course are the LMGs, more directed towards close medium, but not quite as capable as the Assault class in close quarter. These 2 classes find close to absolutely no role in a Rush game mode, at least currently on the map that we have available in the public beta. Now, some of you may find issue with this. I just think the Battlefield experience has always been filled with all 4 classes, everything working in harmony together, and I want a full Battlefield experience in my Rush game mode just as much as I would want it in a Conquest large game mode. Now, talking about map design, we touched on a little bit too little cover. What I do like about the current design that the maps are set up in Rush is it's very linear. This is perfect. This is the way Rush should be. And this is where some of the Battlefield 4 maps failed to do successfully. Linearity with only a certain number of corridors is important. However, there always has to be enough flanking routes, etc. to avoid clogging up and clusterfucking on any Rush map. Now, cover, we need more of it, but what else we need is the difficulty of the MCOMs. It's very uneven currently. Sometimes the first MCOM is the easiest to get, and then suddenly the third one the hardest, and the last one is just a run over. This has also got a lot to do with the distances between the objectives and how often the spawn points of the enemies are very close to the actual objective they are attacking, whereas the defenders often are rather further back, and if they can't get a good spawn point, they have close to no chance of reaching the objective in time. Furthermore, a lot of the actual objectives, while hidden away very well, the defensive structures are not there to defend them very well, which means you basically have to camp on the objective if you want to defend it, and as soon as you pop your head out of the little defensive cove you're in, you're going to get mowed down by a tank. Not my ideal. I like a nice balanced game mode with plenty of classes interacting, and frankly, the way the maps are currently set up, this is not happening in the way I see it. Now, the next point, and this is the biggest point, and it's going to attract some controversy, are the tanks. Now, first of all, I should say I have no problem whatsoever with the amount of power that tanks currently have in Battlefield 1. For a matter of fact, as you've seen in today's gameplay, a huge part of this gameplay is tank gameplay, because this is where currently it's the easiest to get a huge kill streak on Rush with a tank. It's just so easy to do versus Conquest, where you have to pay more attention to your map. But the tanks aren't the problem in themselves. It's the number of tanks and the balance of tanks that I find currently very disturbing. When you have a 24-player match, that is 12 players on each side, and you have 2 tanks on the attacking team, there's very little that the defensive team currently can do to stave off the competitors. There's frankly too much armor coming your way, especially when you don't have armor of yourself. Now, on the first objective of Sinai Desert, which is the current Rush map we are playing, the defensive team does also get tanks. However, once we move into the second and third objective, suddenly you have no more tanks available to you, and this is a massive problem because currently the way of dealing with armor that is most effective is tanks. Infantry is currently very ineffective with tanks, especially on the large open maps that we are currently playing, where long-range tank engagements and long-range tank on infantry engagements are very common. Tanks are excellent at all ranges against infantry, and as such, if we can't fight against them at all ranges, we need tanks of our own to do it for us. Now, part of this problem comes down to the fact that most players currently don't have access to the so-called rocket gun, the assault kit weapon, the best counter to a tank other than a tank in itself. But I can see this being a problem even once everybody has this equipped, because the rocket gun, while very powerful at long range, is sometimes very difficult to use, and the more open a map is, the easier it is for the tank driver to spot his enemy. Now, in Conquest, this could be coming from all directions, and the rocket gun is a little bit easier to use because you can get up on a rooftop and shoot them from there. But in the case of Rush, there's only one direction that the projectile is always coming from, the attack direction you are attacking, and as such, it is very easy to pinpoint where the rocket guns are coming from. And I still think that 2 tanks are simply going to be too much for 12 players to handle. You have to think about this. This is taking something like 4 players alone just to deal with the tanks, fully focused on that. That leaves 8 players defending the objective, and most of them are actually going to be sniping. So let's face it, you're going to have a defensive problem, and this is why most of the games I've played on Rush, I have seen the offensive team winning. Defense usually wins very rarely, and if so, it's one of the last or first objectives, because that's where they have tanks in themselves. And I've had some great gameplay just camping around the objective, sitting in my tank, just taking one infantry after another. But unless the team is 100% focused on taking out armored vehicles, there's no way you're going to be able to stave off the offensive team. And in my opinion, while some will think this is the exact thing that Rush needs, a focus on taking out the enemy armor, frankly, I see a balance issue here. We're talking about Battlefield here. We're not talking about Tank versus Infantry Simulator 2016. We need a balance. We need a little bit of everything, a good measure of everything. And currently, I see too much armor versus infantry other than armor versus armor or infantry versus infantry. And frankly, I disagree with that. Now, this commentary was done very much off script. I just let my ideas, thoughts, and experiences flow a little bit. And I'd like to know about those ideas, thoughts, and experiences that you have had in the Battlefield 1 beta concerning the Rush game mode as well. As usual, of course, you can leave down suggestions suggestions and your opinions in the comments, as well as future video suggestions for both Battlefield 1 and a few more for Battlefield 4 once the beta dies down and we return for a short while to Battlefield 4 for one last time. Anyway, leave your thoughts, comments down below, but at this point I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next Battlefield 1 beta video.